I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'll probably die on this hill, but whatever is energetically and emotionally going on will physically manifest itself. And that's on period, poo. Hey, friend, and welcome to Perfect Periods, the place where we discuss how to navigate different periods of life while perfecting our actual period. What, like it's hard? I'm your host, fertility awareness educator, Barry on Barry, but you can call me Barry. Here, you'll be educated, equipped, and empowered with all the tools, knowledge, and resources you need to master your cycle so you can master your life. Now grab your favorite beverage and maybe a notebook, and let's dive right on in. Hello, love, and welcome to episode 3 of National Women's Health Week 2023. Today, we're going to be touching on brain health, which is really the final element of my hormonal health coaching program. Episode 1, we talked all about vaginal health, and episode 2, we talked about liver health, and now we are in episode 3 talking about brain health. And let me just say this. By no means am I trying to bypass anything. I just feel like we really need to address your nervous system because often we hear people talk about your nervous system and down-regulating it. We hear people talk about fight or flight. And I think what's really missing is a dot connection, right? Like if you have never heard of nervous system regulation, then maybe you don't really understand why it's relevant to your hormones. If you've never heard of fight or flight, you don't know why you should care. If you've never heard of trauma release, you're probably thinking, I don't need therapy. Like, what is all of this? So in today's episode, we're just going to peel back the layers of nervous system regulation really quick. I'm going to touch on what the nervous system is, why it's relevant to your hormones, the parts of the nervous system that are applicable to your hormones, better yet. And then I'm going to share with you 3 very practical things you can do in order to help you regulate yourself. So what is the nervous system? The nervous system is your body's command center. Originating from your brain, it controls your movements, your thoughts, your automatic responses to the world around you. It also controls a lot of your bodily systems and processes such as digestion and breathing and like sexual development. So think puberty. It also controls your libido and everything in between. Now, one of the things that's important to know is that diseases, accidents, toxins, synthetic hormones, things like that, natural aging can all damage your nervous system, but that's not what we're going to talk about. What we're going to talk about are the parts of the nervous system that you should really be familiar with as you are balancing and really optimizing your hormones. Often we hear people say fight or flight, right? Well, believe it or not, fight or flight is a trauma response. So there's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And oftentimes when we are in fight or flight, freeze or fawn, our cortisol, which is a key hormone at play, increases. And when the cortisol increases, it really activates, or better yet, overactivates our central nervous system. Our central nervous system has a few main parts, but the ones that are relevant for hormone balancing are definitely the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So when you are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you are often in the sympathetic nervous system. This is basically your fear side, your survival side, which is why we hear people say survival mode or fight or flight. When you are in that, that can throw off your hormonal harmony, your hormonal balance. And so it's really important to know how to get yourself out of the sympathetic and into the parasympathetic. Now, what you really want to know here is the parasympathetic is known for resting and digesting. So oftentimes when you are sleeping well through the night, you are in your parasympathetic nervous system. Whereas if you're dealing with insomnia, you're in the sympathetic nervous system. And while we as individuals may not be super cognizant in that moment, it's just our body doing what it does best, which is unconditionally love us. Now, when there is an imbalance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, this can often cause, trauma to remain in the body. And a lot of times, trauma that has not been released can physically manifest itself as dis-ease in the body, whether that be painful periods or be fatigue or sore muscles or cramping or bloating. A lot of the things that we don't process through and hold on to get stored in the body in something called your fascia. And what I've noticed is a lot of people overlook nervous system regulation when it comes to hormone balancing. They're often just told to manage their stress. And admittedly, I tell people in a very general way, manage your stress. And the reason I say that is because I reserve my specific practices and tips for the people who are my clients and are inside of my programs. I think it's just an integrity thing for me, but I also know that if you can manage your stress in whatever way feels best for you, you can get out of the sympathetic and drop into the parasympathetic. And when you're in that parasympathetic, you can maintain that hormonal harmony, that hormonal balance, and often optimization of your hormones is a lot easier. Now, this may be your first time hearing about nervous system in this manner. And one, I'm really grateful I can introduce it to you. But number two, I want to share it with you because we don't think of nervous system and brain together the way that we should. Often you hear about them separately. You hear about brain health as oh, you can think better or be more productive or, get enough healthy fats in. Or you hear about nervous system regulation and the only thing you hear about is process your trauma. So I just wanted to pull it all together. Now, if you are somebody who's whoa, this is awesome, but also how can I get myself out of fight or flight and into rest and digest? I want to share with you a few things that you can do. One of the first things you can do is subscribe to a phenomenal YouTube channel called Human Garage. They do a lot of fascial release and trauma related exercises, and they film them and they share with you online how you can consume this information. But if you are somebody who's hyper aware that you have trauma in your body and you're ready to release it, maybe your jaw is always clenched or your shoulders are always tense, or maybe even your lower back is constantly hurting, go to their YouTube channel and just look at the different exercises, stretches, and movements they share. It's one of my things I do at least once a week to just get myself back into this state of feeling my best in my body. My second tip is for you to do identity work. Now listen, this is an area of my life I am still growing in, but learning how to really redefine who I am and rewrite stories and learn and unlearn things has been a really major work for me, especially over the last, I would argue, 6 months. But doing identity work has been so healing. And I think you have to remind yourself that you are safe, you are supported, and then hug yourself. I know it sounds so silly and so minuscule, but we don't show ourselves enough love. And often if you have the perfect routines and you have the right supplements, there's a lot of areas where you could grow and maybe accept yourself, maybe forgive yourself, maybe drop the shame and the guilt. And that's something, like I said, I have personally been working on, and it's something I do with my clients a lot. My third and final tip is for you to work with somebody who is trauma informed. Now, this is definitely optional, but I just feel like this is one of the most transformative things you can do, not only for your hormones, but for your entire life. So for background, a few years ago, specifically in 2021, I went through a certification program that certified me as a life coach, a hypnotherapist, and a neuro-linguistic programmer. And we did a lot of subconscious brain rewiring and whatnot. But in the program, we had to go through trauma training in terms of being really informed. And what I noticed about going through that was that I could then support clients in a completely different way. So often in one-on-one sessions, triggering things would come up for people. And often when people are not trained or trauma informed, it's just a little overwhelming to have tough conversations, right? About past experiences. But it's so important to honor those, respect them, and then be able to question them if a client wants to go through it. And it's one of the things that I'm grateful I know how to do as a coach, but it's also one of those things I encourage people to get support in, because we do have a lot of things we're walking around with, and I don't believe we are victims by any means, but I do believe we need to be victors. Instead of a victim mindset, I'm all about the victor mindset. And as a victor, you also have to be like aware of getting certain support. So I digress, but just being around people who are trauma informed and working with a coach or a therapist or whoever to support you in this nervous system regulation really will support you in balancing your hormones and optimizing them. So, with that being said, I'm going to share one more tip with you because y'all seem to really love when I recommend supplements. So, one supplement that I do think will help you with your nervous system regulation, you can either do sea moss or you can do mineral shilajit. Now, personally, I'm a sea moss girly, but mineral shilajit does work wonders as well. These specific supplements are filled with minerals. And oftentimes, when we are in fight or flight, right, when our nervous system is not regulated, our cortisol depletes our body of certain mineral stores. And what we really want to do is replenish the body. So, in order for you to do that, you want to consume something such as sea moss or the shilajit. Either way, you'll be good and it'll really help you balance and optimize your hormones. Personally, I'm gonna recommend that you do the sea moss because I love my sea moss and I love popping it into a smoothie. But that's what I have for you today, all about brain health. It's mostly about nervous system, but let's be honest, I'm tired of hearing people say the word nervous system. I prefer someone talk about brain health. So, with that being said, I hope this episode has been really supportive to you. And if it has been, let me know over on Instagram, and make sure you come back for tomorrow's episode where we're going to be doing an open format Q&A where I'm going to answer questions about fibroids, endo, PCOS, and everything in between. Also, if you know you're ready to balance and optimize your hormones, go ahead and apply for coaching with me as always, because I am made to support you. I'm really starting to think that's my gift from God. So with that being said, love you, mean it.